Being born into poverty isn't just about having less money. It's about growing up in a world where survival comes before everything else, before ambition, before dreams, before you even have the language to describe what you're missing. And by the time you do, the world has already been moving without you. This is the psychological reality of that life, the parts that stay with you long after the circumstances change. And if you're interested in topics like this, I made a video on the psychology of being born into wealth. Check that one out too. Let's get into it. Your earliest memories are small. A home where rooms served more than one purpose. Thin walls, old furniture. Nothing bought new if it could be found secondhand. You didn't need anyone to explain what was happening. You felt it. In the tension at the dinner table. In the way your parents' face changed when a bill arrived. You watched a parent go to a job they didn't love every single day. Not because they didn't have dreams, but because security was louder than any dream they had. Don't take risks. We can't afford to lose. Stay where it's safe. Nobody said those words directly, but you absorbed them anyway. And in some homes, the pressure found somewhere to go. The anger with nowhere to release. Sometimes it landed on you, not because you deserved it, but because they were carrying something too heavy, and they didn't have the tools to put it down. All of it became part of how you see the world before you were old enough to know there was another way. And as you grow older, you start to notice things. Not all at once. Gradually. You end up in places where others clearly have more. Better clothes, better phones, holidays they talk about casually like everyone goes. Things that in your house would have been a big deal barely register for them. You start to shrink in certain situations. Go quiet in certain conversations. Avoid certain topics before anyone can ask you a question you don't know how to answer. You compare constantly, not because you want to, but because the gap is always there, reminding you. The insecurity isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just shapes you, quietly, without permission. But then something shifts. You want something. Maybe it's small. Maybe you've been asking for it for months. And somewhere in the middle of waiting, you look at the situation clearly for the first time. And nobody is coming, not because your parents don't love you, but because they are already carrying everything they can carry. And the waiting starts to feel slower than just doing it yourself. So you do. That impatience, that small, quiet decision to stop waiting and start moving is where the hunger begins. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. And somewhere along the way, the wait gets bigger. Not just for yourself anymore. Maybe your parents said it softly. The oldest has to set the example. You might need to get a job soon. We need you to step up. And slowly, without fully realizing it, you start carrying your family on your shoulders. Your siblings, your parents, the whole situation. You start feeling like a cost, like your existence is a burden on people who are already stretched. So you make yourself useful. You make yourself necessary. You tell yourself, I have to be the one. Nobody asked you to be the parent, but somewhere along the way, you became it anyway. Here's something nobody tells you about poverty. It doesn't just live in your bank account. It lives in your mind. Your parents didn't mean to pass it down, but they did. Through every decision you watched them make, every risk they didn't take, every opportunity they turned away from because what if it didn't work? You absorbed all of it. And now, even when your circumstances start to change, the mindset stays. You find yourself hesitating before going all in on something, not because the opportunity isn't real, but because somewhere deep down, a voice says, what if it falls apart? What if you lose it all? Better to keep a backup. Better to stay safe. You never fully commit. You always leave yourself an exit. You think about money as something that runs out, not something that can grow. Something to protect, not something to use. And that thinking quietly, invisibly, puts a ceiling on everything you are trying to build. The poverty left. But the mindset, the real inheritance your parents never meant to give you, that takes much longer to unlearn. And then comes the guilt. Watching the people you love still in a position you managed to get out of. Not just through hard work, through persistence, through timing, through luck that could have easily gone the other way. You lived that life. You understand it from the inside. And seeing it continue for the people you love while you have moved forward is a different type of pain. But here is something you have to understand. In life, you have to be selfish with yourself. Not because you don't love them, but because you cannot pull anyone out of a situation you are still in yourself. Your growth is not a betrayal. It's the only way you can ever truly go back and help. But here is the other side of this story. Sometimes being born into poverty is the best thing that ever happened to you. Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, born into poverty, became the greatest in the world. Not despite where they started, because of it. Poverty builds patience, hard work, resilience, a love for family, and an appreciation for money that people who always had it will never fully understand. That baby had no choice in where they landed. Neither did you. What you do with it, that part is entirely yours.